some might say that estate agents are not a particularly loved profession here in the UK. Is that the same in France or other places?
It's 100% the same.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're used to that then. That's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know. Possibly there was a bit more respect in France for an estate agent as a professional, because there is that obligation to train and to be a lot more sort of informed on the legal ins and outs of a transaction. I certainly left for France with the intention of leaving the industry because of that lack of sort of recognition for what an agent does, I think. And so I was quite refreshed when I found that it was a respected profession in France.
How does the model actually contribute to that? Because again, if I was an estate agent watching this and thinking, I'm really not appreciated in my profession, how do you think that the model actually helps with estate agents doing a better job and actually having a better reputation?
If you take it down to a really basic level, they don't have a salary, so they can't just shut the shop door at the end of the day and go home and leave the client hanging. They are only getting paid when that property is sold, so it's within their interests to get the property sold. If they're then growing their own independent business, they need that return business as well, repeat business, and they won't do that by upsetting the vendor or the purchaser. So obviously they've got to make sure that everybody in the process is happy. And that's how their business grows. So I think it's really what is actually changing the profession is the fact that the agent becomes personally accountable. They also have a much higher earning potential if they're successful in what they're doing. And it kind of weeds out the wheat from the chaff as well, because there are some people that possibly are not made for the self-employed role that will come in. They haven't got what it takes, and so they possibly won't contribute to a change in the reputation of agents. But the agents that are good at what they do, that have previously been unrecognized because they've been the face of whatever the brand is. Sorry, they've not been the face of whatever the brand is. The brand has taken priority.
Yeah.
It will give those people a real opportunity to shine and to change the face of the industry.
And have you found that? Have you found that your agents themselves are perhaps more satisfied, and that has fed into repeat business and your customers being more satisfied since you've used your new model?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the individual that the client buys or buys into. So they, like Nick says, they deal with the customer from the beginning to the end. Whereas if you're in a high street agency, likelihood is there's 4 or 5 different people that you get dealt with, and no one takes full responsibility generally. Whereas in the new model, the agent is fully responsible.
Well, certainly what I can see is, again, I'm a punter. I'm someone who bought property. But what I can see as someone approaching this as a punter is that there are some agencies I just won't deal with.
Of course.
And they might have brilliant agents, and I've met some brilliant agents. But I think what your model gets rid of is the fact that I'll say, right, well, that's listed with XYZ. I'm not even going to bother viewing it. I like the look of it, but I know that an agent is a nightmare, or I know that agent charges a fortune in commission.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm just not going to call about that property, and that gets rid of your model. Gets rid of that.
Yeah,
right?
and I think that's it. It's interesting what you say, because I think people are very attached to their brands, agents as brands in the UK, and it's not because one high street office of a national group is bad in one location that they are in another. But if you've had that unfortunate experience, you're automatically going to associate it.
So, and people always assume a big brand is going to be a good thing. But I think sometimes in a estate agency, you just got so many preconceived ideas.
Absolutely.
Obviously, never about David Lee.
Absolutely, of course.
No one ever had that.
Yeah. But for you as a customer, you're thinking of selling your property. If you invited an IAD self-employed agent round and you built a really good rapport with that person, knowing that your whole journey would be directly involved with that person. And you could have them 24 hours. They were your agent.
The day they gave me their mobile number would probably be the worst of their life, because I'd be ringing them morning, noon, and night. But it would reassure me knowing
what a lovely relationship to have.
It would reassure me
from start till end, and that's where we see our agents that we already have that are super successful. That's how they're winning.
And it gives the agent as well, I guess, the autonomy to be their own brand, because again, when you've got big brands, they're working within the remit of what the brand says, and sometimes you can tell that they're reeling off phrases that they've been trained in rather than just talking to you. And again, that gets rid of some of that, I suppose.
I think it's also the flexibility, because the minute they've got the mobile number and that one point of contact, it's the same person holding their hand from the valuation through to completion. which is not the case at the moment. It's often the manager does the valuation, someone else does the viewing, someone else is doing the conveyancing, and I think people feel rather sort of possibly abandoned by the first
and
person.
you've got to put the offer in through someone else.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
when
yeah.
you're making an offer.
Yeah.
You can't put the offer in with the agent. You've got to do it through a form with the manager,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
and that just makes it all.
It feels depersonalized.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
the agents suffer. It's the irony is the agents
well,
themselves
because
suffer.
the person that did the valuation might have done a great job, but actually somewhere along the transaction, that client might have been upset by something that went wrong.
Yeah, of course.
And does the agent as well go through the entire conveyancing too, from start to finish? Because again, that's another aspect of a high street agency, is that the sale is done by the agent, and then there is a conveyancing agent that you then deal with, and then if that doesn't go through, it bounces back to an agent again. Does the model for IAD get rid of that?
So it's something we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
There is a shocking fall-through rate in the UK, and I think that's partly down to the fact that once the memorandum of sale is sent out and an offer is accepted, there's a tendency for the agents to just sit back and go and focus on the next transaction and not actually make sure that it goes through to completion by keeping on top of the solicitor, working with a solicitor that actually does the job in the same way that that agent has, and making sure that it goes through to the end. So I think that's something that we've certainly changed in France and in the other countries in which we're present, that we want to bring that change here.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's that full job of one person, start to end.
Well, if I if I was going to be a self-employed agent, I'd want to be across knowing that that transaction went through, so that I got my commission.
Yeah.
And
Well, because I think you care a little bit less if you're only getting 10% of the commission than if you're getting 69% of it.
and it's also, although it's nice, is it that much in the interest of the person that is then the conveyancing agent to worry about that person's commission?
Probably not, because you don't know how the structure is.
Yeah.
But generally, not.
Could someone do it part-time as well? You say about the flexibility and working from home. If you're an agent that wants to, I don't know, you're maybe returning back to the workplace, you've got children, whatever else, does that model work, that you can maybe take on just a couple of properties?
Absolutely. We've got agents in our network that work and do that sort of level of business. So it works from that up to somebody who wants to sell 10 houses a month.
And do IAD, if you're new to it whatsoever, but you're just a property obsessive, would IAD offer the kind of training that would get you up to scratch enough that you could just take this on from scratch?
So we have Jason Ball, who's our head of training. His sole responsibility is to make sure that the training material is there, that everybody has access to it, that it's really helping develop people for whom it's possibly a career change, but also people that actually might have years of experience but have never had any training, which is a bit of a problem with the industry at the moment. So it's making sure that everybody is properly trained and has access to that moving forward. So we're completely open to perhaps people that want to do this part-time alongside having a family, people that have never quite had that break because they didn't have the experiance.
Older people who perhaps
Absolutely.
as well, want to have a side income, because we've got a productivity problem among some older
Cost
people.
of living's gone up, a sort of subsidy for their retirement. Totally, that works as well.